Ichika, a young traveler who takes frequent short trips and values freedom of movement, hears about Axel's promotion. One free extra day of car hire with every booking. How is Ichika most likely to perceive this offer? Select one answer. A, as unimportant, since she rarely stays in one place long enough. B, as essential, because it allows her to extend trips cost-free. C, as inconvenient, since it forces her to rent longer than needed. D, as highly beneficial, because she can plan longer holidays and holidays. The correct answer is A, as unimportant, since she rarely stays in one place long enough longer than the. Now let me explain why this is the right answer and break down the others as well. To begin with, the question clearly states that Ichika takes frequent short trips and highly values freedom of movement. Because of this, an extra day of car rental might not appeal to her. She simply doesn't stay in one location long enough to use that benefit. That's why she would likely see the offer as unimportant. Now moving to option B. It may sound appealing to have extra free time, but Ichika doesn't prioritize long trips. Her lifestyle is about short stays, so even if it's cost-free, she probably wouldn't use that additional day. Therefore, it's not essential to her. Next, option C is a bit misleading. While it suggests inconvenience, the offer doesn't force her to rent the car longer. It's just an added benefit, not a requirement, so it doesn't really create a burden or force a change in her travel style. Finally, option D says the offer is highly beneficial because it helps with longer holidays. But that's not aligned with Ichika's travel habits. She travels often, but not for long periods. Her style is more spontaneous and short-term, not planned around extended holidays. In summary, since Ichika values flexibility and short-term stays, she wouldn't find the extra day particularly useful. That makes option A the most accurate. A company wishes to implement a new software solution. The CEO defines the requirements for the software, while the CFO reviews the budget and approves the purchase. The employees use the software once it's installed. Which of the following accurately describes the roles in this scenario? Select one answer. A, the CEO is the sponsor, the CFO is the customer, and the employees are users. B, the CEO is the customer, the CFO is the sponsor, and the employees are users. C, the CEO is the user, the CFO is the customer, and the employees are sponsors. D, the CEO is the customer, the CFO is the user, and the employees are sponsors. The correct answer is B. The CEO is the customer, the CFO is the sponsor, and the employees are users. Let's now take a moment to break this down and understand why. Starting with the CEO, the question tells us that the CEO defines the requirements for the new software. That's the classic role of a customer in a project context. Someone who knows what's needed and specifies the business requirements. Next, we have the CFO, who reviews the budget and gives financial approval. This is a textbook example of a sponsor's role, the individual who provides or approves the funding necessary to move the project forward. Lastly, we look at the employees, who are the ones that will actually use the software day to day. That clearly makes them the users in this situation. On the other hand, let's consider the incorrect options. Option A flips the roles of the CEO and CFO, which doesn't align with who defines the need versus who funds it. Option C incorrectly classifies the CEO as the user and gives the employees the sponsor role, which misplaces both responsibility and usage. Option D treats the CFO as a user and the employees as sponsors, which doesn't make sense given their involvement in using the product and not funding it. So when we match each role to their function in this scenario, option B gives the most accurate description. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. In a service relationship, service provision refers to the activities performed by the service provider to deliver the service, while service consumption refers to the activities performed by the consumer to receive and use the service. The correct selections have been made, so now let's walk through the explanation together. To begin with, service provision is all about what the provider does. This includes the actions and processes required to deliver the agreed-upon service to the customer. For example, in a cloud storage service, provision involves setting up servers, maintaining uptime, and ensuring secure access to files. On the other hand, service consumption describes what the customer does to make use of that service. So, using the same cloud storage example, consumption would involve the customer uploading files, retrieving data, or sharing access with others. Now, let's briefly touch on why the other terms are incorrect. Service actions might sound close, but they don't fully define provision and lack the formal role distinction. Service management is a broader concept that covers governance, policies, and continual improvement, but doesn't explain the actual exchange in a service relationship. Finally, service value describes the outcome or benefit received, not the activities that take place to deliver or use the service. So, in summary, understanding provision versus consumption helps clarify who is doing what in a service relationship, which is critical in IT service management frameworks. Which of the following are types of costs involved for a service consumer in service relationships? Select two answers. A. Costs removed by the service, e.g., cost of staff, technology. B. Costs imposed on the service provider, e.g., provider's operational costs. C. Costs imposed on the consumer by the service, e.g., service charges, training costs. D. Costs that are not relevant to the service relationship. The correct answers are A. Costs removed by the service, e.g., cost of staff, technology. C. Costs imposed on the consumer by the service, e.g., service charges, training costs. Now let's take a moment to explain these answers clearly. First, when we talk about costs removed by the service, we mean the kinds of responsibilities the consumer no longer has to handle. For instance, if an organization uses a cloud email service, they no longer need to hire IT staff to manage email servers or invest in physical infrastructure. These are examples of costs that have been taken off their shoulders, hence removed. On the other hand, costs imposed on the consumer by the service refer to things the consumer still has to pay for. These might include usage fees, service subscriptions, or costs related to training their staff to use the new service effectively. These are considered part of the consumer's ongoing investment in using the service. Now let's look at why the other options are incorrect. Option B, which focuses on the provider's operational costs, isn't relevant to the consumer's cost structure, even though it's important for the provider. And option D claims certain costs aren't relevant to the service relationship, but in practice, all costs within that relationship have some level of relevance, either for the provider or the consumer. In conclusion, the two key cost types for the consumer are those that are removed through the service and those that are added as charges by the provider. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. ITIL 4 introduces the concept of the Service Value System, SVS. True. ITIL Service Value Chain defines disconnected activities in service delivery. False. Digital transformation increases the need for operational agility. True. ITIL 4 focuses solely on IT departments, not the entire organization. False. Let's now go ahead and explain each of these answers one by one. First, ITIL 4 indeed introduces the Service Value System, or SVS. This concept represents a holistic framework showing how all the components and activities of an organization work together to create value through IT-enabled services. It's foundational to ITIL 4. Next, the statement that the service value chain defines disconnected activities is incorrect. The service value chain actually defines interconnected activities that build on each other to deliver value. The entire chain is designed to ensure a seamless flow from demand to value creation, so describing it as disconnected is a misunderstanding. Moving on, digital transformation naturally increases the need for operational agility. As organizations adopt new technologies and adapt to digital environments, they must be more responsive and flexible in their operations to stay competitive and efficient. Lastly, ITIL 4 does not focus solely on IT departments. In fact, it expands its scope to encourage organization-wide alignment. It promotes collaboration across departments and emphasizes strategic integration throughout the entire business, not just IT. In conclusion, understanding these distinctions helps clarify how ITIL 4 supports modern service management and enterprise agility beyond traditional IT boundaries. An enterprise introduces a new cloud platform to streamline internal services. The transition affects internal roles, data integration tools, and their external vendor support. Despite planning, unexpected issues arise as staff struggle with unclear responsibilities and vendor SLAs conflict with internal goals. Which factors most likely contributed to the unpredictability in service delivery? Select two answers. A. Value streams and processes. B. Rigid separation of dimensions. C. Overlap and interaction between dimensions. D. External regulatory pressure. The correct answers are A. Value streams and processes, and C. Overlap and interaction between dimensions. Let's now look at the explanation and why those two selected answers are correct. First, overlap and interaction between dimensions is a major contributing factor. The scenario mentions confusion about roles and misalignment between external vendor agreements and internal needs. This shows that different dimensions, people, partners, and technology are overlapping in a way that creates complexity. ITIL 4 highlights how these interactions can cause challenges if they're not clearly defined or managed. Next, we consider value streams and processes. These are clearly impacted because staff are struggling with unclear responsibilities. When workflows aren't well structured or when internal and external inputs conflict, the value streams themselves become unpredictable, leading to service disruptions. Now let's examine why the other two options are not the best fit. Rigid separation of dimensions isn't the issue here. In fact, the problem comes from too much overlap, not separation. ITIL 4 discourages siloed thinking, but in this case, the confusion arises from blurred boundaries, not isolated parts. And finally, external regulatory pressure doesn't apply to this scenario. There's no mention of legal or compliance requirements impacting the transition, so that's not a relevant factor in the unpredictability described. So to summarize, the unpredictability stems from internal complexity and blurred role clarity, best captured by issues in value streams and interactions between dimensions. What best describes a service partnership in the ITIL service management context? Select one answer. A supplier delivers physical goods and the customer owns the outcome. B, the provider delivers a service and the customer takes responsibility for outcomes. C, the provider and customer share responsibilities for both service outputs and outcomes. D, a contract with clear separation between service provision and outcome ownership. The correct answer is C. The provider and customer share responsibilities for both service outputs and outcomes. Now let's break down why this is the right answer and explore the other options. In a true service partnership, the provider and customer work together, not just through service delivery, but in achieving outcomes. This means they both share responsibilities for how the service performs and what value it brings. It's more collaborative than a traditional supplier relationship. Looking at option A, this scenario describes a typical good supply setup, not a partnership. The supplier provides the product and the customer is fully responsible for how it's used. Option B refers to service delivery, where the provider delivers a service, but the customer owns the result. This is a more transactional model, not the cooperative one seen in a partnership. Option D points to a formal supply contract with strict boundaries, which again doesn't match the flexible and cooperative nature of a service partnership in ITIL terms. So in summary, a service partnership is defined by shared ownership of both service performance and the results it achieves, making option C the best description. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. A service provider may choose to engage external suppliers due to resource scarcity or to access subject matter expertise in specialized domains. Let's now explain why these answers are appropriate. First, resource scarcity refers to situations where the internal team lacks enough people, time, or specific skills to perform a task or deliver a service. For example, if a provider needs to implement a new analytics tool but doesn't have qualified data engineers available, they may outsource that work to an external supplier. Next, subject matter expertise comes into play when a provider needs highly specialized knowledge for a particular area. This might include fields like cybersecurity, regulatory compliance, or machine learning, domains where external professionals can add value beyond internal capabilities. Now, why were the other options not correct? Service catalog simply lists available services but doesn't explain why suppliers are brought in. Data redundancy is about backup and storage reliability, not about sourcing talent or services. And brand image might be important for marketing, but isn't a valid reason for engaging external suppliers in this context. So overall, The most accurate reasons for involving external supplier service management are resource scarcity and the need for deep, targeted expertise. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Value streams should remain static once defined. False. Mapping value streams helps in identifying workflow barriers. True. Value streams are composed of one or more value chain activities. True. Processes and controls are not relevant to value streams. Let's now go through the explanation of each answer clearly and concisely. First, the idea that value streams should remain static is incorrect. In reality, value streams must be continuously reviewed and refined to adapt to changing customer needs, technologies, and business conditions. Keeping them static leads to inefficiencies. Next, mapping value streams is a powerful tool. It helps organizations spot bottlenecks, redundancies, or unnecessary steps in workflows. This makes it easier to streamline processes and improve service delivery. As for the third statement, it is indeed true that value streams are composed of one or more value chain activities. These activities, like plan, improve, deliver, and support, work together to produce value for the customer. Finally, the notion that processes and controls are not relevant to value streams is false. In fact, they are crucial. Controls ensure quality, consistency, and compliance, while processes guide how activities are carried out effectively within the value stream. So in summary, value streams are dynamic, interconnected systems that rely on continual improvement, structured activities, and supporting controls to maximize value creation. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Value streams should be defined for each product or service and adjusted over time to reflect strategic changes or shifts in demand. Now let's take a moment to explain why these choices are correct. First, value streams are designed to deliver value, and since each product or service has its own way of creating and delivering that value, it makes sense to define value streams specifically for each one. For example, the value stream for a cloud-based storage service will differ from that of a consulting service. Next, strategic changes refer to shifts in organizational goals, priorities, or direction. When these happen, value streams need to be realigned so that service delivery continues to support the organization's evolving needs. If a company shifts focus from enterprise clients to small businesses, for instance, its value streams will need to be restructured accordingly. The other options don't quite fit. Market share is an outcome, not a driver for how you define streams. Team structure might change as a result of value stream adjustments, but it's not a reason to define them. And internal meetings are operational details, not strategic decision points. So overall, the goal is to build value streams around each offering and keep them responsive to strategic shifts and customer demands. Which model is mentioned as useful for managing suppliers and partners? Select one answer. A. Value stream optimization, VSO. B. Customer experience integration, CXI. C. Service integration and management. D. Information lifecycle automation, ILA. The correct answer is C. Service integration and management. Let's break this down for clarity. Service integration and management, or SIAM, is a model specifically designed to help organizations manage multiple suppliers and partners in a coordinated way. It focuses on integrating services from various sources into a single, unified delivery model, something particularly important when outsourcing or working with third-party vendors. Now let's briefly address the other options. Value stream optimization, VSO, is not referenced in this context and deals more with process improvement, not supplier coordination. Customer experience integration, CXI, centers around customer journeys and touchpoints, not supplier management. Information lifecycle automation, ILA, deals with managing data through its lifecycle. It has no direct application to managing partners or external suppliers. So when it comes to managing a multi-vendor environment effectively, SIAM is the most appropriate and relevant model. A company provides a customer service department that supports its clients by addressing their queries and issues. The company also relies on partners to help fulfill customer demands. What does this situation exemplify in the context of service relationships? Select one answer. A. The company is acting solely as a service provider to the customers and partnering with others. B. The company is only a consumer of the services provided by its partners, not a provider. C. The company is engaged in both providing and consuming services within the service relationship. D. The company has created value but does not need to manage its service relationship with partners. The correct answer is C. The company is engaged in both providing and consuming services within the service relationship. Now let's unpack why this is the most accurate choice. In this scenario, the company operates in a dual role. On one hand, it's a provider. It delivers customer service directly to clients. On the other hand, it's also a consumer because it depends on partners to deliver parts of the overall service or support its delivery. This is a classic example of a service relationship where both roles are active and essential. Option A is misleading because it suggests the company only provides services, ignoring the fact that it also depends on external partners. Option B is inaccurate because it reduces the company's role to that of a consumer, when in fact it's actively delivering services to customers as well. Option D incorrectly assumes that once value is created, there's no need for ongoing relationship management. But in ITIL terms, service relationships require active and continuous management to ensure alignment and value realization. So the best description here is that the company is simultaneously a provider and a consumer, making option C the correct answer. Which of the following are activities in the service value chain that organizations should perform? Select 3 answers. A. Engage with stakeholders to understand their requirements, B. Improve processes to enhance efficiency and performance. Design and transition new services into operations. D. Monitor and manage the organization's internal finances. E. Ensure all products are delivered to consumers on time. The correct answers are A. Engage with stakeholders to understand their requirements. B. Improve processes to enhance efficiency and performance. C. Design and transition new services into operations. Let's now take a moment to understand why these are the right choices. First, engaging with stakeholders to understand their requirements is part of the engage activity in the service value chain. This ensures that services are aligned with stakeholder expectations and deliver meaningful value. Second, improving processes to enhance efficiency and performance directly relates to the improve activity. This function is focused on making sure that everything from delivery to feedback loops keeps evolving in a way that supports continual improvement. Third, designing and transitioning new services into operations is essential. It involves taking services from the concept stage through development and into operational use, ensuring they are stable and fit for purpose when they go live. Now on to the incorrect options. Monitoring and managing internal finances, while crucial to business operations, is not one of the core value chain activities. It belongs more to general business support functions. Ensuring products are delivered on time is more of an overall outcome or performance expectation, not a specific value chain activity. The service value chain is about how services are planned, built, delivered, and improved, not about managing logistics directly. So to sum up, the selected activities align directly with the ITIL service value chain structure and its goal of delivering continuous value through structured service management. How do feedback loops contribute to the co-creation of value between a service provider and consumer? Select one answer. A. Feedback loops help the provider define what the consumer wants without collaboration. B. Feedback loops are only useful for improving internal service processes, not for co-creating value. C. Feedback loops allow the service provider and consumer to iteratively adjust the service to better meet expectations. D. Feedback loops should be eliminated to ensure the service is delivered as originally planned. The correct answer is C. Feedback loops allow the service provider and consumer to iteratively adjust the service to better meet expectations. Now let's unpack why this answer is correct. Feedback loops play a crucial role in co-creation, which is a foundational concept in ITIL 4. By consistently gathering input from the consumer and responding to it, the service provider can make timely adjustments. This ensures that the service evolves alongside changing customer expectations and business needs. Let's briefly look at why the other options don't work. Option A suggests defining needs without collaboration, which goes against the principle of co-creation. It's not enough for the provider to assume they need to engage. Option B restricts feedback to internal improvements, ignoring its core role in creating shared value with the consumer. Option D contradicts the need for agility. Eliminating feedback would mean the service may fall out of alignment with what the customer truly needs. So, in summary, feedback loops help ensure services are continuously refined through collaboration, making them essential to delivering ongoing value. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Customer experience, CX, refers only to the subjective elements of customer interaction with the service provider. False. CX encompasses both objective, e.g., on-time delivery, and subjective, e.g., website usability factors. True. The CX is completely measurable and does not involve subjective factors like personal preferences. False. Managing CX involves continuous feedback and adjustments to service delivery. True. Now let's walk through each of these statements to understand why the selected answers are correct. First, the idea that CX refers only to subjective elements is incorrect. While subjective aspects such as emotions and perceptions matter, objective elements like system reliability and response time also shape the customer's experience. So, it's not limited to feelings alone. Second, it's absolutely true that CX spans both objective and subjective dimensions. On one hand, you have measurable aspects like delivery speed and accuracy. On the other, you have elements like how easy it is to navigate a website or how the interaction feels to the customer. Third, the claim that CX is completely measurable is false. While some parts, like wait times, can be quantified, personal preferences and expectations vary widely and aren't easily converted into data points. These subjective factors are essential to a full understanding of CX. Lastly, managing customer experience rightly involves continuous feedback and refinement. It's not a one-time setup. Listening to customers, making ongoing improvements, and aligning services with evolving expectations are core practices in effective CX management. In summary, customer experience is a rich blend of both measurable performance and emotional perception, and it must be continually shaped through feedback. For each feedback insight listed below, drag it to the appropriate boxes in the correct match column to match it against the organizational element it helps improve. Each item may be used once, more than once, or not at all. Helps assess how much value users believe they are receiving. Customer perception helps evaluate how well service management activities perform. Activity efficiency helps improve the effectiveness of oversight and control structures. Governance effectiveness helps assess the relationship between the organization and its partner suppliers. Interface clarity helps identify trends in product service interest. Demand tracking. Explanation. To begin with, customer perception captures the user's sense of value based on their service experience. This type of feedback helps an organization understand whether it is truly meeting customer needs and expectations. Next, activity efficiency focuses on operational performance. Specifically, this feedback insight reveals how effectively service management activities are being executed and whether resources are being utilized to produce optimal results. Furthermore, governance effectiveness is improved through feedback that relates to oversight and control. This includes insights into the clarity of leadership, enforcement of policies, and soundness of decision-making processes. Moreover, interface clarity benefits from feedback that assesses the quality of relationships with partners and suppliers. This ensures that roles, responsibilities, and communication lines are clearly defined and mutually understood. Finally, demand tracking involves identifying trends in user interest. By analyzing behavior and feedback, organizations can better anticipate future service needs and align their offerings with market demands. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The plan activity provides product and service requirements to engage. False. Obtain build ensures availability of service components that meet agreed specifications. True, engage receives knowledge and information from third-party suppliers. True, improve provides contracts and agreements to suppliers. False. Now, let's explore the reasoning behind each statement. To begin with, the plan activity focuses on portfolio-level decisions and strategic direction. not the direct provision of product or service requirements to engage. Its role is more high-level and planning-oriented. Moving forward, obtain build indeed ensures that service components are made available and that they align with predefined specifications. This validates the true nature of the second statement. Furthermore, engage is tasked with collecting insights and information from third-party suppliers. These inputs help with coordination and internal planning, making this statement accurate. Lastly, it's important to clarify that improve does not handle contracts or agreements. Instead, its focus is on identifying and implementing service improvements, leaving supplier contract management to other areas like engage or supplier management practices. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. The continual improvement model begins with identifying the vision, followed by determining where we are now and setting measurable targets. Later steps include executing actions and evaluating metrics and KPIs. Let's explore how each selected element supports continual improvement. To begin with, identifying the vision sets a clear direction and purpose for all improvement efforts. It ensures alignment with the organization's strategic goals. Next, determining where we are now provides a factual baseline, enabling the organization to assess current capabilities and conditions through analysis. Following that, setting measurable targets is essential for guiding focused improvement activities. These targets act as specific goals that can direct planning and resource allocation. Finally, evaluating metrics and KPIs allows the organization to validate whether the improvement efforts have succeeded. These indicators provide evidence-based insights to refine future actions. On the other hand, options like vendor targets, feature rollout, or new users are either too specific or not directly relevant to this broad, systematic model. You are evaluating an existing customer support process. Your colleague suggests inviting someone who has never worked with this team to join the observation. Why might this be helpful? Select one answer. A, they will bring advanced technical insights from other departments. B, they can ask unbiased questions and notice overlooked issues. C, they can validate existing assumptions without needing clarification. D, they will challenge the process and create a better new model from scratch. Correct answer, B, they can ask unbiased questions and notice overlooked issues. Let's now explore why this is the most fitting choice. To begin with, inviting someone unfamiliar with the team allows for a fresh and impartial viewpoint. Such individuals are more likely to raise objective questions and highlight overlooked gaps, simply because they are not embedded in the existing routines and assumptions of the team. On the other hand, although bringing in technical insights from other departments, option A, may add some value, the key advantage in this context is unbiased observation, not specialized technical knowledge. Moreover, validating assumptions without the need for clarification, option C, is not realistic. Verification of assumptions typically requires probing and contextual understanding, which a new observer wouldn't naturally possess. Lastly, while challenging the process and starting from scratch, option D sounds bold, it is rarely necessary or efficient. Most improvement efforts aim to refine, not completely rebuild, what is already in place. In summary, the greatest advantage of involving an uninvolved observer is their ability to identify what insiders might miss, making option B the most effective answer. For each statement below, indicate whether it is true or false. Knowledge management only involves capturing and sharing information. False digital platforms have increased the value and need for structured knowledge management. True. The first step in knowledge management is to define what knowledge is needed and for whom. True, only formal, written knowledge should be reused in ITIL practices. False. Now, let's explain each answer with proper reasoning. To begin with, knowledge management involves more than just capturing and sharing. It also includes defining, structuring, building, and reusing knowledge in meaningful ways. Thus, limiting it to mere information sharing is inaccurate. Furthermore, digital platforms have indeed heightened the importance and complexity of structured knowledge management. They introduce new demands for accessibility, security, and integration, which makes this statement true. Moreover, the knowledge management process logically begins with identifying what knowledge is needed and for whom. This initial step ensures that all subsequent actions are relevant and user-centered. Finally, restricting knowledge reuse to only formal written sources overlooks the value of tacit knowledge, which includes experiences, insights, and informal practices that are often equally vital. Therefore, that claim is false. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Agile portfolio management applies build, measure, learn cycles on an organization-wide scale, helping teams reprioritize work and deliver value incrementally. Let's now provide a brief reasoning behind each choice. To begin with, build, measure, learn is central to Agile methodology. This cycle enables rapid experimentation, feedback gathering, and learning, making it a cornerstone of iterative development. Additionally, reprioritize reflects the Agile emphasis on adaptability. Teams are encouraged to regularly revisit priorities based on evolving customer needs, feedback, and changing business contexts. Moreover, delivering value incrementally ensures that small, functional outputs reach users faster. This allows for real-time adjustments and continuous improvement rather than waiting for large, monolithic releases. In contrast, traditional models like waterfall lack the responsiveness Agile demands, while terms like delay and permanently contradict Agile's focus on speed, feedback, and change. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Strategy management ensures that strategic plans are turned into operational and tactical plans to align the entire organization with its direction. Let us now explain why these choices are correct. To start with, strategic plans represent high-level organizational goals. They define the long-term vision and direction of the business, acting as a compass for decision-making. Next, these strategic plans are translated into operational and tactical plans, which involve detailed actions and resource allocations. This ensures that the abstract goals are executed on the ground with precision and accountability. On the other hand, options like vision documents and product roadmaps serve more aspirational or product-specific purposes rather than holistic strategic implementation. Similarly, internal audits are tools for monitoring compliance, and governance policies establish controls, but neither qualifies as implementation planning tools. For each configuration management concept, drag it to the appropriate box in the correct match column. Each item may be used once, more than once, or not at all. Tracks how different components relate and interact. Service map manages and stores config data across tools. Configuration management system, a component managed to deliver an IT service. Configuration item, a unified database of config information. Configuration management database. Now, let's unpack the reasoning behind these correct matches. To begin with, a service map offers a broad overview of how components and services are interrelated, enabling visibility into dependencies and relationships across the IT environment. Next, the configuration management system refers to the complete toolset and framework that houses and manages configuration data, ensuring consistency and control across multiple platforms. Moving on, a configuration item is any element that must be individually managed to deliver a service. This includes hardware, software, documentation, or even personnel. Finally, the Configuration Management Database, CMDB, acts as a central repository for configuration data. It organizes and stores critical records needed for decision-making and service management. As for the unused items, Incident model pertains to incident management, and release plan is specific to release management. Thus, they are not applicable in this configuration context. For each statement below, indicate whether it is true or false. Service design applies only to technology and excludes people or processes. False skipping service design may result in expensive and failure-prone services. True. Not all changes require service design activity. False. Security, adaptability, and continuous operation are enabled by good service design. Let's now explore the rationale for each of these decisions. To begin with, saying service design applies only to technology is incorrect because it encompasses not only technology, but also people, suppliers, processes, and supporting practices, making it a holistic activity. Moreover, skipping service design can indeed lead to costly, failure-prone services. In ITIL, poor design is explicitly linked to increased risk, rework, and inefficiency. Hence, the statement is true. In addition, while some changes may appear minor, all changes, whether big or small, require some degree of design thinking to ensure alignment with service objectives. Thus, the claim that not all changes need service design is false. Lastly, security, adaptability, and resilience are critical outcomes of good service design. These features are built into the architecture and processes of a well-designed service, so the final statement is true. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. Information security practices must balance prevention, detection, and correction activities to protect organizational data. These activities are supported by policies, processes, and controls. Let's now explore the reasoning behind each correct and incorrect option. To begin with, prevention is correctly selected because it refers to measures taken to stop security incidents before they occur, helping to proactively reduce risk. In addition, detection is appropriate since it involves identifying security events promptly when they do happen, crucial for minimizing damage and initiating timely responses. Moreover, correction is a necessary component because it focuses on enabling effective recovery and restoring systems after an incident, thereby completing the security response cycle. Lastly, controls rightly support these activities as they are the safeguards, like policies, procedures, and technical configurations that enforce and uphold security requirements. On the other hand, let's consider why the other options are incorrect. Escalation may sound relevant, but it refers to a response workflow rather than a foundational pillar of security. It's a procedural reaction, not a security focus. Encryption, while vital, is actually a type of control, not a standalone core principle like prevention or detection. It's a tool, not a pillar. Automation supports various aspects of security by streamlining processes, but it is not one of the three core activities in the security balance model. Change requests are part of change management processes rather than foundational security practices. They help manage IT changes but don't directly relate to the prevention, detection, or correction of incidents. Fill in the blanks by selecting the correct options from the drop-down menus. To sustain improvement, organizations must use metrics to validate the value of the change and avoid reversion to old behaviors. Communication must also consider cultural differences. Let's break down why each selected option is correct and others are not. First of all, metrics are essential because they provide quantifiable validation that the change is delivering value. By tracking improvements, they help reinforce continued adoption. In addition, reversion is a common risk in change initiatives. People often fall back into familiar habits unless there's a sustained effort to reinforce new behaviors. Hence, recognizing and mitigating reversion is crucial. Moreover, cultural differences must be accounted for in communication strategies. What resonates in one cultural setting may not in another, so tailoring messaging to diverse audiences supports more inclusive and effective engagement. Conversely, the other choices do not quite fit the context. Deployment refers to technical rollouts, not to validating or reinforcing behavioral change. It's about making something available, not sustaining its adoption. Notifications serve as alerts, but they're typically one-off and insufficient for fostering long-term behavioral shifts or measuring value. Urgent testing is more relevant in QA or incident scenarios. It has no direct role in communication strategy or reinforcing new behaviors through improvement initiatives. A new employee has joined your company and needs a laptop, software access, and network permissions. Fulfilling this request involves coordination across HR, IT, and security teams. What does this scenario best demonstrate? Select one answer. A, a standard change requiring emergency approval. B, an incident impacting multiple service components. C, a complex service request requiring a multi-team workflow. D, an operational issue with undefined procedures. The correct answer is C, a complex service request requiring a multi-team workflow. Let's explore the reasoning behind the correct and incorrect options. To begin with, a complex service request requiring a multi-team workflow accurately describes this scenario. Employee onboarding, though routine, can involve coordination between several departments and multiple steps. These are predefined and documented within the service request management practice, even if complex. On the other hand, a standard change requiring emergency approval does not fit. Emergency changes are typically urgent, unplanned, and handled through expedited approvals. Onboarding is scheduled and follows a predefined path. Additionally, an incident impacting multiple service components refers to disruptions or outages, such as a system crash or network failure. Onboarding does not imply service disruption, but rather provisioning of access and tools. Lastly, an operational issue with undefined procedures would imply a lack of structure or planning. However, employee onboarding is a structured, well-defined process, even if it spans several teams. A company is preparing to launch a new AI-based service. The innovation could give them a competitive edge, but there are potential ethical and data privacy concerns. What is the most appropriate risk management approach in this context? Select one answer. A. Avoid innovation until all risks are eliminated. B. Proactively assess the potential threats and opportunities of the AI service. C. Ignore the risks and launch quickly to beat the competition. D. Wait for regulators to finalize laws before considering any development. The correct answer is B. Proactively assess the potential threats and opportunities of the AI service. Let's begin by examining the most effective approach. Proactively assessing the AI service allows the organization to weigh both threats and opportunities before launching. This method promotes informed decision-making and aligns with ITIL's emphasis on balancing value creation with risk control. In contrast, avoiding innovation until all risks are eliminated might appear safe, but it is ultimately unrealistic. No innovation is risk-free, and waiting indefinitely can paralyze growth and prevent progress. Additionally, ignoring the risks and launching quickly to beat the competition may result in ethical lapses, data breaches, or compliance failures. Though speed is important, this approach is reckless and undermines strategic governance. Finally, waiting for regulators to finalize laws before acting reflects a passive mindset. While compliance is necessary, it should not hinder responsible innovation or delay thoughtful planning. Altogether, proactively assessing risks and opportunities equips organizations to innovate responsibly, striking the right balance between agility, safety, and value. According to ISO 31000-2018, what is the primary purpose of risk management? Select one answer. A. To eliminate all uncertainty. B. To enable total organizational control. C. To create and protect value. D. To delay action until full compliance is guaranteed. The correct answer is C. To create and protect value. To begin with, the ISO 31000 standard clearly defines the core aim of risk management as enabling organizations to achieve their objectives by creating and protecting value. This approach emphasizes sustainability, resilience, and strategic support. On the other hand, eliminating all uncertainty is neither practical nor desirable. Uncertainty is inherent in any decision-making environment, and risk management seeks to navigate, not eliminate it. Additionally, enabling total organizational control misrepresents the goal of risk management. Rather than enforcing rigid control, the standard encourages informed decision-making that allows for agility and responsiveness. Finally, delaying action until full compliance is guaranteed contradicts the proactive spirit of ISO 31000. Risk management should promote timely, responsive engagement with risk, not hesitancy or inaction. Altogether, creating and protecting value reflects a balanced, actionable approach to risk that aligns with modern organizational priorities. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Supplier categorization may occur after contracts are signed. True. Supplier planning includes collaboration with practices like service level management. True. The service integrator only coordinates services and has no role in reporting or assurance. False. Supplier evaluation should always focus on cost as the most important criterion. False. Let's now walk through the reasoning behind each answer. To begin with, supplier categorization may indeed take place even after contracts are signed. This is because categorization is not a static process. It evolves based on ongoing performance, risk assessments, and strategic value. Next, it's important to recognize that supplier planning does not occur in isolation. Rather, it must be aligned with other practices such as service level management. This coordination ensures service objectives are clear, measurable, and consistently met. Moving forward, the statement that the service integrator only coordinates services is incorrect. In reality, the integrator is responsible for a broader scope, including reporting, assurance, and governance activities. They serve as a central authority that ensures service cohesion and accountability. Finally, although cost is an important metric, it should not be the sole criterion in supplier evaluation. A well-rounded approach also considers risk, collaboration potential, service quality, and long-term value to the organization. Indicate whether each of the following statements is true or false. Problem management contributes to the engage value chain activity by keeping customers informed of problem status. True, design and transition is unaffected by problem management. False, product defects discovered during analysis are managed in the obtain build activity. True, problem management has no involvement in the deliver and support activity. False. Let's now walk through the reasoning behind each answer. To start, problem management does contribute to the engage value chain activity. This is because customers may be engaged through updates on prioritization and workaround delivery, which aligns with transparent communication during problem resolution. In contrast, it is incorrect to claim that design and transition is unaffected by problem management. On the contrary, problem management plays a vital role by feeding insights into testing, knowledge transfer, and ongoing design improvements, helping to reduce future incidents. Additionally, when product flaws are discovered during analysis, they are indeed handled within the obtain build activity. This ensures those defects are corrected during the creation phase, enhancing the overall quality of services or products. Lastly, it is false to say problem management has no role in deliver and support. In fact, it actively supports frontline teams by reducing repeat incidents and enabling long-term service improvements. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Design thinking can be used alongside lean and agile methods. True. Design thinking should only involve designers and architects. False. It considers customer, organizational, technical, and partner perspectives. True. Design thinking avoids iteration to prevent delays. False. Let's now walk through the reasoning behind each answer. To begin, it is true that design thinking can be integrated with lean and agile methods. This is because all three approaches share a focus on flexibility, user feedback, and iterative improvement, allowing them to complement each other effectively in practice. On the other hand, the statement that design thinking should only involve designers and architects is false. In reality, design thinking thrives in multidisciplinary teams. It encourages input from various stakeholders, including users, developers, and business leaders, to foster a broader and more innovative range of solutions. Next, it is true that design thinking takes into account diverse perspectives. Specifically, it includes customer, organizational, technical, and partner viewpoints to ensure solutions are viable, desirable, and feasible across the board. Lastly, the idea that design thinking avoids iteration is false. In fact, iteration is central to design thinking. It's through prototyping and repeated testing that teams refine ideas and deliver real innovation without stalling progress. You are validating a new customer-facing portal before deployment. You want to ensure it meets both business needs and security policies. What is the best approach? Select one answer. A. Run only a system test to ensure the interface loads properly. B. Conduct both functional and non-functional tests based on acceptance criteria. C. Focus on unit tests to reduce the number of test cases. D. Skip validation since the system was developed by a trusted vendor. The correct answer is B. Conduct both functional and non-functional tests based on acceptance criteria. Let's now walk through the reasoning behind each answer. To begin with, conducting both functional and non-functional tests based on acceptance criteria is the most comprehensive and balanced approach. It ensures the system meets business requirements like user functionality, as well as critical non-functional aspects such as performance, security, and usability. This aligns the deployment with both user expectations and enterprise standards. Now let's consider the other options. Running only a system test might confirm that the interface loads, but it won't capture deeper flaws in logic, integration, or security. That's too limited. Focusing only on unit tests also falls short. Unit tests target small code components, which doesn't help when you need to validate the complete user journey or system-wide compliance. Lastly, skipping validation because the vendor is trusted is a risky assumption. Even trusted vendors can introduce errors, so testing remains essential before launch. Think of it like launching a new banking app. You wouldn't just check if the login screen loads. You'd also want to ensure user data is encrypted, transactions processed correctly, and everything performs well under load. What has made the knowledge management practice increasingly valuable in modern organizations? Select one answer. A. Increased dependence on printed documentation. B. Shift toward digital methods of capturing and sharing knowledge. C. Reduce complexity of information systems. D. Fewer staff needing formal training. The correct answer is B. Shift toward digital methods of capturing and sharing knowledge. Now that we've reviewed the question and identified the correct answer, let's explore why that choice stands out and the others do not. To begin with, option B is correct because modern organizations rely heavily on digital platforms to capture, share, and reuse knowledge. As teams become more dispersed and work becomes more dynamic, digital tools help ensure that critical information is accessible and up to date. For example, a shared cloud-based knowledge base allows employees to find troubleshooting steps, policy documents, or onboarding material instantly. Turning to option A, increased dependence on printed documentation is actually outdated. Organizations are moving away from paper-based systems due to inefficiency and inaccessibility. Next, option C suggests a reduced complexity of information systems, but that's misleading. In fact, systems are growing more complex, not simpler, making robust knowledge practices even more necessary. Lastly, option D, which claims fewer staff need formal training, is inaccurate. The need for learning hasn't decreased. If anything, it has evolved, requiring more flexible, on-demand access to knowledge rather than formal classroom sessions. In summary, digital transformation has made capturing and sharing knowledge faster, more efficient, and absolutely essential in today's fast-paced work environment. What are two practices that organizational change management closely interacts with? Select two answers. A. Project management. B. Supplier performance tracking. C. Relationship management. D. Cloud resource optimization. The correct answers are A. Project management and C. Relationship management. Now let's break this down to understand why these choices are the most appropriate. To begin, project management is deeply linked with change management because most organizational changes are delivered through structured projects. When a new tool or process is introduced, project teams coordinate delivery, while change managers ensure adoption by preparing users and addressing resistance. Similarly, relationship management is vital because any change initiative hinges on clear communication, trust, and stakeholder engagement. By managing relationships effectively, organizations increase the likelihood that stakeholders will support and embrace the change. On the other hand, supplier performance tracking option B is more relevant to vendor oversight rather than organizational change. While it's important, it doesn't directly drive change adoption or engagement. Lastly, cloud resource optimization focuses on technical efficiency and cost, not the human and behavioral side of transformation. So in a real-world scenario, think of a company rolling out a new CRM system. The project manager ensures it's delivered on time and budget, while the change manager works with department heads and staff to ensure they actually use it effectively. That's the power of aligning project and relationship management with change efforts. Which two responsibilities typically fall under strategy management in an organization? Select two answers. A. Prioritize innovation without assessing risks. B. Manage changes to strategies as environments shift. C. Translate strategy into tactical and operational plans. D. Focus purely on short-term financial gains. The correct answers are B. Manage changes to strategies as environments shift, and C. Translate strategy into tactical and operational plans. Now that we've selected our answers, let's take a moment to explore why these are the right choices and understand the logic behind them. First, managing changes to strategies as environments shift is crucial because the business landscape is constantly evolving. Strategy management must ensure that strategic objectives stay relevant and aligned with changing market conditions, regulations, and customer expectations. Next, Translating strategy into tactical and operational plans is another fundamental task. It's not enough to have a great strategy on paper. That vision must be broken down into concrete actions and plans that teams can execute across departments. On the contrary, prioritizing innovation without assessing risks is not ideal. Strategy should always involve evaluating potential risks and benefits before moving forward with innovation. Otherwise, it could lead to costly failures. Finally, focusing purely on short-term financial gains doesn't align with effective strategy management. True strategic planning emphasizes long-term sustainability, competitive advantage, and value creation, not just immediate profits. Together, the correct answers reflect a balanced, forward-thinking approach to organizational strategy. Which two contributions does capacity and performance management make to service design and building? Select two answers. A. Ensuring components meet expected performance. B. Selecting vendors with the lowest cost. C. Supporting scalability through modeling and forecasting. D. Managing incident escalation procedures. The correct answers are A. Ensuring components meet expected performance, and C. Supporting scalability through modeling and forecasting. Now, let's take a closer look at why these answers are correct and how they support service design and building. To begin with, ensuring components meet expected performance is a key part of capacity and performance management. This process is all about planning ahead so that systems can handle anticipated loads without crashing or slowing down. For example, if a company launches a new app, this practice ensures the servers can manage thousands of users without lag. Equally important is supporting scalability through modeling and forecasting. This means analyzing trends and usage data to predict future growth, which allows systems to scale smoothly. Think of it like planning for road expansion in a growing city. You build capacity before traffic jams become a problem. On the other hand, selecting vendors with the lowest cost isn't part of this process. That's more related to procurement or financial management than performance concerns. Finally, managing incident escalation procedures falls under incident or problem management, not capacity and performance. Together, these correct answers highlight how planning and forecasting play a vital role in designing robust, scalable services. Which three statements are true about ITIL problem management? Select three answers. A. Workarounds can be automated and reused. B. Known errors must always be resolved quickly. C. Not all problems must be analyzed. Priority is based on risk. D. Problems may originate from internal teams, developers, or suppliers. The correct answers are A. Workarounds can be automated and reused. C. Not all problems must be analyzed. Priority is based on risk. And D. Problems may originate from internal teams, developers, or suppliers. Let's take a moment to explore why these options are correct and how they reflect ITIL best practices. First of all, A. Workarounds can be automated and reused. This is true because automation enhances consistency and speeds up recovery when issues reoccur. By scripting known workarounds, organizations reduce manual intervention and resolve incidents more efficiently. Next, C. Not all problems must be analyzed. Priority is based on risk. This reflects a core ITIL principle. Not every problem needs immediate investigation. Instead, resources should focus on problems that pose the highest risk to the business, allowing teams to work more effectively. Furthermore, D. Problems may originate from internal teams, developers, or suppliers. This acknowledges that problem sources are diverse, ranging from internal operations to external third parties, so a comprehensive approach is needed when identifying and managing problems. On the contrary, B. Known errors must always be resolved quickly is incorrect. While resolving known errors is ideal, it's not always practical or cost-effective to address them right away. Sometimes a workaround is more appropriate, especially if the issue has low impact. Altogether, these three correct statements emphasize ITIL's flexible, risk-based approach to problem management. An organization wants its service desk to track team availability, assign work efficiently, and ensure consistent support coverage. They are evaluating tools that will help them schedule staff shifts and manage resource allocation effectively. Which tool would best support this goal? Select one answer. A. Workforce and Resource Planning System. B. Interactive Voice Response IVR System. C. Remote Desktop Access Tool. D. Service Request Catalog. The correct answer is A. Workforce and resource planning system. Now, let's break down why this is the best choice and why the others fall short. To begin with, workforce and resource planning systems are designed specifically to handle staff scheduling and workload management. They allow service desks to align resource availability with customer support needs, ensuring both efficiency and proper coverage. This makes option A the most appropriate tool for the described goal. On the other hand, the interactive voice response IVR system, while useful for routing incoming calls to appropriate support teams, has no role in managing schedules or tracking team capacity. Additionally, remote desktop access tools are intended for technical troubleshooting and assisting users remotely. Although they support service operations, they do not contribute to managing human resources or scheduling workflows. Lastly, the service request catalog helps users understand and request available IT services, but it doesn't help with planning shifts or assigning work among the service desk team. Altogether, when the goal is to optimize human resource deployment at the service desk, the workforce and resource planning system stands out as the right tool. Your organization is planning to upgrade its customer database. The change will break compatibility with the old version, so you want to deploy the upgrade to all users simultaneously. What is the most suitable deployment approach? Select one answer: A. Phased deployment, B. Pull deployment, C. Big bang deployment, D. Continuous delivery. The correct answer is C. Big bang deployment. Let's now explore the reasoning behind this choice to ensure full understanding. Big bang deployment is the most appropriate method when compatibility between the old and new systems is completely broken. In such a case, partial updates can't work because both systems can't run side by side. For instance, if the database schema changes significantly, any user still on the old version could face critical failures. On the other hand, phased deployment wouldn't work here. This approach rolls out updates gradually, but when old and new systems can't coexist, gradual rollout introduces too much risk. Similarly, pull deployment gives control to the end users to update at their own pace. That might sound flexible, but it creates inconsistency across systems and makes it impossible to enforce a synchronized cutover. Lastly, continuous delivery focuses on frequent small updates, but that model doesn't suit a one-time breaking upgrade where everyone must switch over at once. So in real-world terms, when you're launching a new system version that breaks all ties with the old one, Big bang deployment is the only way to ensure everything transitions together without chaos.